One live look-in and reaction to the confirmation hearings of Attorney General nominee Pam Bondi, Secretary of Transportation nominee Sean Duffy, and Secretary of State nominee Marco Rubio. Two, as we speak today, and not to focus too exclusively on myself, but at the University of Texas, they are fighting to keep their football players. But that's happening everywhere in college football. So let's discuss the disruptive nature of NIL and the confirmation hearing of Pete Hegseth with Senator Tommy Tuberville. And three, our lunch break panel dives into the farewell letter from Joe Biden. It is the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, on the Fox News Facebook page. 30 radio stations across this great United States of America, but always on demand if you're listening in your car. If you're listening through your headphones, just head over to Spotify or Apple and hit subscribe and fit us into your schedule. We talked about this yesterday. We're going to be more available to you. I like to be available to my friends. I'm not always good at a text response, but I like to be there when needed. Starting next Tuesday, the Will Cain Show, a new edition of the Will Cain Show, but the same spirit, the same curiosity, and the same principles and values of this show will begin to air at 4 o'clock on the Fox News channel. It will be an experiment, a process, much like I think is how you arrive at the truth, a process together, launching on the Fox News channel, the Will Cain Show. I'm just looking through my phone here, fellas. The FDA has just announced that they are doing away with red dye number 3. Now, the image that's accompanying the news articles on this announcement is of soda. And I see, and it's not labeled, it's glass bottles of sparkly red soda. And I immediately, my head goes directly to Big Red. Now, listen, I don't drink Big Red. That's not like I'm not a big soda guy, period. The occasional Dr. Pepper, the occasional Diet Dr. Pepper, the occasional Diet Coke. But I just like knowing that Big Red exists. It's like one of those things that, it feels kind of Southern, and it feels like an extreme indulgence. And you just, every once in a while, you want to have the option of a Big Red. But I'm searching. It's under no threat. Big Red uses something like, it's called Red Dye 40. So what's in Red Dye 3?
I don't know, but it's a lot of products like Double Bubble has it, Fruit by the Foot, Little Bites, Hostess Ding Dongs, Nestle Strawberry Milk.
I see Ring Pop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why is 40 staying and 3 is going?
Probably.
All I read is right now it's Red Dye 3, which in it is a petroleum-based food coloring that apparently, according to studies going back to the 1980s, has links to cancer.
Great.
And, of course, I don't know what this means about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I don't know if this is under his influence, even his just cultural influence, or his potential incoming at HHS. But this is fascinating. I wonder if Swedish Fish have red dye.
What about
I'm a big Swedish Fish.
Mountain Dew Code Red,
They do?
assuming?
A lot of these, too.
I don't know.
The list for Red Dye 40 is actually a lot longer. When I broke down the list for 3 versus 40, the 40 one seems to be stuff that's in every day. That's Swedish Fish, 40s and Twizzlers, M&M's, Starburst, Skittles, Hawaiian Punch.
Okay, so it's not complete Armageddon for the red dye world on candy and Coke, but it is a rollback for anything that had Red Dye 3. By the way, speaking of dye, one of the things I'm excited about here with the launch of the Will Cain Show is that I will have an hour. And there's going to be a lot of details to work out and a process, like I mentioned, about the launch of our show physically, like studio space, where we're going to be. This show will be coming to you from Texas, from Dallas. But it's going to take some time to engineer our studio exactly the way we want it. And the way that we want it, and when I say we, it's not just me and the boys. I mean, Fox. The way we want it, it's going to be very different than the way it's done the rest of Fox. But one of the things I'm going to be paying attention to is lighting. So here's what I'm telling you, fellas. I'm tying this into red dye. I was on Waters last night talking about the confirmation hearing of Pete Hegseth. Do you want to know what the first comment was? The first when I opened my phone, and looked at X.
So you look tan.
The first comment, I bet you can guess.
That you look tan.
Did I look? No, not that I look tan.
Oh.
You dyed your
It's
hair.
the same thing.
You
I
dyed
get
your
all too
hair?
often. Yeah, why do you dye your hair?
Because he does.
People are like, hey, man, and this isn't even a question anymore. This was the nature of last night. Hey, man, you got to stop dyeing your hair. It looks like you're using black shoe polish. You have to stop. I don't dye, nor have I ever dyed my hair.
Can I say something? And you can't get mad at me?
Of course. It's the Will Cain Show.
Yeah,
it's the Will
you
Cain
can't
Show.
get mad at me. So we saw you in person yesterday. I saw some gray flecks in there in person.
Oh, yeah, like our kind of hair.
100%.
In your hair. So I
got
can
grays
confirm
here.
you don't dye. Yeah.
I got grays here. They're coming here, right?
Did you get a haircut?
I've got them on the sideburn. They're coming along the side. I didn't.
It's
And
just wet,
it's actually,
yeah.
to your point, Dan, it's coming right through here, too.
Yeah,
There's
a
like
little
little
bit.
speckles even on top.
Just little speckles.
And I don't begrudge the dude that dyes his hair or his beard. I don't have a hot take on that. You should probably consider the quality of your dye job. But I just don't. And so it's like accusing me, like, I used to make this joke, when you start a fire, you know how you put a Duraflame log sometimes in the fire and that gets your fire going a little bit extra and a little faster? I don't begrudge dudes who use Duraflames in their life, whatever it needs to get your fire started, and I don't, and I mean that in all applications. I mean it, skincare and the one you guys are giggling about, all applications. But I just don't want to be accused of it if I'm not. I'll be honest with you when I'm using a Duraflame, but I'm not. I don't want to own Duraflames that I'm not using to start my fire. So no hair dye. That will be proven on the Will Cain Show. Okay. We got a big show coming up for you today. We got Senator Tommy Tuberville coming in. I want to talk to him, and I think you guys should give him the heads up, although he's always prepared. I want to talk to him for a minute about college football. It's not the news today. We're going to talk about the confirmation hearing of Pete Hegseth. But right now in college football, the transfer portal is open. NIL bidding is out of control. I'm seeing it firsthand as a big fan of the Texas Longhorns. Something has to be done, or we're going to look up in just a few years, and college football will be essentially over. Armageddon. But we're also going to talk about and review some of yesterday in the confirmation hearing of Pete Hegseth. But that is taking place right now. More hearings today, tomorrow, next week, including today, Pam Bondi, Sean Duffy, Marco Rubio. Let's get to that with story number one. Right now on Capitol Hill, Marco Rubio is facing senators as a nominee for Secretary of State. Pam Bondi as the nominee for Attorney General. And Sean Duffy, my friend, owning all loss of objectivity, my friend as the nominee of Secretary of Transportation. We do have a couple of those hearings that we can share. I believe one of them just ended as we started to dip in. But I believe that some of them are still ongoing unless they are breaking for lunch. 2 days. Do we still have any of those three hearings, Bondi, Duffy, Rubio, that are ongoing right now?
Duffy's still going. Bondi and Rubio just adjourned, I think, for now. So this is Duffy.
Let's take a live listen to Sean Duffy.
And again, we're smaller populations. One of the balances that I think I'll have to make with this committee is the amount of dollars it costs to connect rural communities, whether it's through rail, maybe there's other better options, maybe it's buses or other forms of transportation. But I would welcome the chance to work with you to figure out pathways in which we can make sure our communities get connected to the arteries of this country that connect everybody.
Yeah, I want to make sure also to follow up on Senator Kim's point. We talked a little bit about Amtrak, and you actually shared that you've had great trips on Amtrak. I want to make sure that Amtrak and
I don't know, I said great.
Yes, you did. I want
Might
this
have
on the
overstated
record.
that,
You see, I put this on the record.
take
Great
trips.
trips on Amtrak. Beautiful. And but I want to make sure that we continue to support that rail because it's so vital. And then the last thing, a lot of people have talked about the pilot shortage, and this is something we didn't talk about in our conversation. But I'd love to follow up with you. Delaware State University, our HBCU, has the first probably program in the country that is an aviation program, and we are growing pilots. Helicopter pilots as well as airplanes. So would love to follow up with you on the efforts that Delaware State University is making in partnership with the private sector, with the public sector, as well as a model for the rest of the nation.
I would welcome that, and I think this is a great industry to get into, a great career path, and I think we have to do a better job of incentivizing young Americans to consider aviation as a career. So I would love to follow up and speak with you on that. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. I yield back.
So that's a little bit from the hearing of Sean Duffy, your nominee for Secretary of Transportation. I was somebody who was a passenger in the aviation industry this morning. I flew back from New York to Dallas, so I haven't been able to be completely plugged in on all the various hearings, but I have had my team on it, my crack team of Two-A-Days Dan, Young Establishment James, and Tinfoil Pat, monitoring these hearings. One of the big takeaways is, first of all, it's no surprise that Sean Duffy would do very well. It's just not a surprise. Of course, he has experience, not unlike Pete Hegseth, in television. He has experience in politics. He has experience communicating and presenting his ideas. That's obvious to you. And that's nothing unique for me to share with you about Sean Duffy. What I can also share with you about Duffy is of all the people that I know, and I don't just want to say this within TV, man, Sean is such a guy about preparation and professionalism. And by the way, collegiality, as you can see displayed there. Sean knows what he's talking about when he goes in. I guarantee you, whatever went into this hearing, Sean is prepared. And has studied deeply over the past couple of months the Department of Transportation and comes into it with values, knowing where that department has failed in the past, East Palestine, Ohio, Lahaina, Maui, what the role can be for transportation in North Carolina, clearing airspace for civilian pilots that want to step in the midst of a disaster. Same thing could be applied to Maui, Hawaii. Sean comes at it with the right values, and I know that he pairs that with the same preparation to ace that hearing in the same vein as Pete Hegseth. All of these hearings, from what I'm hearing, certainly with Duffy and with Rubio, and I haven't got to see quite as much today from Pam Bondi, have a decidedly different tone in nature from what we saw yesterday with Pete Hegseth. So let me give you a couple of takeaways from the combination of seeing these on back-to-back days. The confirmation hearing for Pete Hegseth, the confirmation hearing for example, Senator Marco Rubio to Secretary of State. The tone is totally different. What these senators from the Democratic side of the aisle are doing today are asking questions, getting to know, and boring into the ideas and policies of these potential nominees, of these potential secretaries. What they did yesterday is put on a show and used as a prop Pete Hegseth. You can see the tonal difference. Mazie Hirono wasn't interested in answers from questions for Pete Hegseth. It was another senator, I can't remember which one it was, asked Pete, hey, have you ever had any experience at all, at any level of your career, with innovation? And he had a ready answer, talking about how at Concerned Veterans for America, they had forwarded policy that helped change the way we deal with American vets. And he was cut off. Once he started to answer that question adeptly, the senator lost interest, showing you that the question wasn't one in search of an answer. It was a performance. Buffoons and clowns on a stage doing a dance with you as their audience. It's decidedly different when they don't think the show, when the curtains are withdrawn and the spotlight shown, and they're taking the stage for the show of Senator Marco Rubio, of Sean Duffy, of Pam Bondi. What they didn't perhaps anticipate is that Pete Hegseth is one hell of an opening act, one hell of a leadoff. And I don't even think those two analogies are quite spot on. What I think Pete Hegseth became yesterday for Donald Trump was an icebreaker. You ever seen those icebreakers that come boring through the Arctic or the Antarctic, you know, when you reach the ice shelf, but you're not yet fully hitting ground in Antarctica? You got to break through the ice shelf. I read a lot of books about guys like Ernest Shackleton, and I've read about Arctic, Shackleton being an Antarctic, but Arctic Explorers, Kingdom of Ice. Great book. Hampton Sides. And breaking through ice is a big part of it. And you have to build a certain kind of ship that breaks through the ice, you know, steel reinforced hull. Boy, was that a steel reinforced hull boring yesterday through the Senate Armed Services Committee. Hegseth handled that so well. He so, with their own efforts, diminished the Democratic senators, appeared as the adult in the room, big when they were small, of a different quality and caliber, yes, I will say this, of human being than the ones that would dare not question, but perform before him, that he probably made the nomination process easier for every single one of Donald Trump's nominees. What More Politico has an article up right now saying what a strategic mistake Democrats made by never pivoting away from Pete Hegseth. For a month more, they have been almost solely focused on Pete. You notice, like, Tulsi Gabbard, back page. Kash Patel, no discussion. Any other nominee that might otherwise be controversial for Democrats has received no attention because it's all been solely focused on a failed effort to take down Pete Hegseth. My man, my buddy, my colleague, the Icebreaker, took all of the arrows at his armor, and they fell to the ground. Now what's left in the quiver for Tulsi Gabbard or Kash Patel? Pete Hegseth yesterday was the Icebreaker for Donald Trump. I want to review some of the more humorous clips yesterday, courtesy of Pete, Elizabeth Warren, Tim Sheehy, Mark Wayne Mullen. And I want to get into what's happening. Why are we seeing, unless somebody like my next guest steps in, are we seeing really the demise of college football? Senator Tommy Tuberville, next on The Will Cain Show. Joe Biden has issued a farewell letter. I actually want to go through it line by line. There are 2 paragraphs of particular interest that I think are worthy of a deeper analysis. We're going to get to that with my lunch break panel coming up in just a little bit here on The Will Cain Show. But Senator Tommy Tuberville from the great state of Alabama was once the head coach at the University of Cincinnati Bearcats, the Texas Tech Red Raiders, the Auburn Tigers, and I probably missed something in there, Coach. When you get as high as you did, which at one point was an undefeated season, there's a few more stops along the way, Coach, right?
Yeah, I was at Miami and Texas A&M and head coach at Ole Miss. I made a few stops, Will.
Oh, I forgot about Ole Miss. Yes, it's just your resume is so long, Coach. Sometimes I can't fit them all into my memory to spit them all out at once. I want to talk to you about college football in just a minute. I kind of woke up this morning reading about it, Coach, and you and I have talked about it in the past. But let's pick up with where you left off yesterday. You were in the confirmation hearings with the rest of the Senate Armed Services Committee for the hearing on nominee to Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. I just love, first, your just overall top-line thoughts.
Home run. He set the tone, Will, for all these other hearings that are going to happen for the next week or so. This obviously was the one that they desperately wanted to block. They felt like they had some help on the Republican side. If Pete doesn't get, or General, I'm going to call him General now, if General doesn't get every vote from Republicans, they weren't going to vote for him anyway, because he absolutely showed passion, he showed motivation, he showed experience. They had a game plan, but he put them back in their seat on every question. I thought he handled it well. Again, it's about a passion of doing what you want to do, and he's very passionate about this.
Coach, I said that. There's a lot of praise for Pete's performance. I don't think it is a performance. In a way, it's always a performance. In a way, what I'm doing now, what you're doing now is a performance. But it's less of a performance, and it's easier when you believe what you're saying and you know why you believe it. And that guy, Coach, and you've gotten to know him, same guy that I know, that I sat with for 5 years, that I've known for over a decade of my life. I mean, it's just no surprise. He's principled in all these beliefs. And so, throw what you want. I bet he wasn't afraid of any question. Throw the junk ball, the spitter, the slider, the changeup, throw the heat, throw everything you got. I can hit every pitch in that arsenal because I know why I believe what I believe. By the way, we should tell the audience why you called him General. Here's a moment from yesterday's hearing.
You're quite sure that every general who serves should not go directly into the defense industry for 10 years. You're not willing to make that same pledge?
I'm not a general, Senator.
Certainly not sauce for the gander.
I would want to see what the policy of the president is.
Oh, I'll bet you would.
Thank you, Senator Warren. Senator Tuberville.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your hard work and your committee's hard work, Mr. Chairman. This is This has gone well. I'd like to submit this letter, topic Conduct at Vets for Freedom for Hegseth. I'd like to submit that for the record, please.
Without objection.
General Hegseth, Mr. Hegseth,
It was a funny. You know what? It had moments, of levity.
Yeah. Well, the big thing about it is that's 5 hours. That's 5 hours of sitting there, not going to the restroom, not having really any water. All the tension is there. He handled it perfectly. And again, that's what it's going to take to do the job he's getting ready to step into, hopefully. And again, he's going to have some good people around him, a good coaching staff, as I call it. Matter of fact, I'm meeting today with the possible future Secretary of Defense, his number 2 man. And
The deputy.
it's all coming together. Again, Pete, we are in trouble, okay? Our country is in bad trouble. The world's in trouble. And we have to restore our military. We got some good people, but it's going the right direction. We have the wrong values. We have the wrong game plan. And Pete basically brought in yesterday, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And my goodness, this is as good a hearing as I've been in 4 years since I've been here.
Well, it's about as good as I've ever seen, to be honest. I know I'm biased, but it was just, as you said, a home run. I thought this was another really good moment from one of your colleagues from Oklahoma. Senator Mark Wayne Mullen really tore into the hypocrisy sitting on that panel of everybody that wanted to dig into Pete Hegseth's mistakes and personal lives. Let's watch this together.
Senator Cain, or I guess I better use the senator from Virginia, starts bringing up the fact that what if you showed up drunk to your job? How many senators have showed up drunk to vote at night? Have any of you guys asked them to step down and resign from their job? And don't tell me you haven't seen it, because I know you have. And then how many senators do you know have got a divorce before cheating on their wives? Did you ask them to step down? No. But it's for show. You guys make sure you make a big show and point out the hypocrisy because the man's made a mistake. And you want to sit there and say that he's not qualified? Give me a joke. It is so ridiculous that you guys hold yourself as this higher standard and you forget you got a big plank in your eye.
You know, Senator, I don't know if you have a return right now on the Will Cain Show. And if anybody's listening on radio or Spotify or Apple, your face, because you're in the background sitting right next to Senator Mullen, your face is a play. It's its own one-act play right there as you listen to him tear in.
Yeah, I was. Mark Wayne is. He always he cuts through the fat, so to speak, as we say in the South. He doesn't hold anything back. And what Senator Cain did was wrong. You don't go after somebody personally. Just keep going. Ask them a question and get on with it. That's what a hearing's about. But their game plan was to just challenge Pete about everything other than the military. They wanted to bring him down. They thought they could get possibly some other women to vote against him because of some of the comments he said about women in combat, which is exactly right, by the way. At the end of the day, everything aside, it was. He couldn't have done any better. It could not done any better than how he answered the questions and handled the Democrats. And again, I want to say this too, Will. I've been in many of these hearings. He had more people there in support of him. It was just unbelievable. I went to a press conference the day before. We couldn't get the Navy SEALs that he had there representing him and supporting him. We couldn't get them all in the room. I'm thinking, holy cow! I've never seen anything like this. He got an ovation when he walked into the chamber for his hearing. That doesn't happen. It doesn't happen at all. So
yeah, it
was
USA.
A great day, and again, a great start for all these confirmations.
I know those guys, Senator. I know Bill Brown, all those Navy SEALs, Jeff Gum, Kaj Larson, all those guys who were there, and I appreciate. And I know you were there as well on Monday. It was a heck of a turnout, and quite a stark contrast, by the way, to Code Pink, who got thrown out for their various protests during the hearing. I do want to follow up on something that Senator Mullen was asking, and I want to lay runway of why I'm curious. I'm curious about the hypocrisy. I should say, I'm not doing this because I'm trying to backfill an excuse for Pete, because I'm here to say he did not drink on the job, unequivocally. Any accusations as such are total and utter bullshit. So I'm going to say that as clearly as possible. He did not drink on the job. Second, a lot of people do. And I'm not talking about being drunk. Sometimes people have a cocktail. And I don't actually even begrudge them that. Maybe it's not for the Secretary of Defense. But for the sake of hypocrisy, Coach, let me ask you this, because I just heard this morning. If you as a senator go to the National Archives and you ask to read a document, they'll set you up in a room. From what I've heard and understand, and I don't know if you can verify this, they'll set you up in a room to read the documents that you need to document with. And the clerk there will ask what you'd like to drink and bring you what you would like to drink. And we're not talking about Gatorade. So you can have a bourbon while you while you read it from the National Archives. From what I understand, this is a common courtesy or practice on Capitol Hill.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that happens. Of course, there's times now, and I've told people this, that we've started voting or working in the Senate chamber at 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and we don't finish until the next day at that same time, 24 hours straight. And
right.
I would imagine there would be some partaking of whatever, because you get sometimes you even get to go home for 30, 40 minutes between votes. You never know what happens.
Right.
But again, at the end of the day, you've got to be a grown-up about this. You got to understand the reason that you're there, doing the right things. And I never believed any of that about Pete. I mean, again, it's all rumor, and I don't go by rumors. You know,
Yeah.
I go by facts, and that's what we all have to go by when especially when you're doing something as important as this.
I want to watch one more moment with you, Senator, because I thought this is a new senator from Montana, and I think some are, they think this moment is funny. There's others who dismiss it as frivolous. I actually think there's something pretty fascinating and deep about this moment from Senator Tim Sheehy, the new senator from Montana, with Pete. Let's watch.
How many genders are there? Tough one.
Senator, there are 2 genders.
I know that well. I'm a Sheehy, so I'm on board. What is the diameter of the rifle round fired out of an M4A1 rifle?
That's a 5.56.
How many push-ups can you do?
I did 5 sets of 47 this morning.
What do you think our most important strategic base is in the Pacific?
In the Pacific, Guam is pretty strategically significant.
How many rounds of 5.56 can you fit into the magazine of an M4 rifle?
Depends on the magazine, but standard issue is 30, Senator.
And what size round does the M9 Beretta standard issue sidearm for the military fire?
A 9mm.
You know, Senator, that it seems granular. At times it is humorous. That's deep humor, by the way. Sheehy making fun of his own name. And Pete saying, by the way, did 47 push-ups. It took me a minute, but I figured it out. Why did he do 5 sets of 47? But I eventually got there. But what I thought that showed, Senator, is a guy that knows it from the bottom up, from the dust on the boots to the number of rounds in a magazine on an M4 to the most strategic base in the Pacific. The guy understands the military from top to bottom.
You know, the big thing that Pete has got and will understand and already understands is communication. And my question was about recruiting. And you're going to see recruiting go out the roof because, number one, Pete's age. You know, he's more the age of the warfighter. You know, he's not 65, 70 years old and been in the Pentagon forever and hadn't carried a gun or shot a gun in 40 years. He understands it. He understands what these young men and women are getting into. And he's going to be a great recruiting tool. He's going to be a hands-on Secretary of Defense. He's exciting to be around. Again, as I said earlier, you can't do anything right without passion. And he's going to put all the passion he has into this job, and he'll be a great Secretary of Defense. Now, he's going to have his hands full because what we've had before this has been a disaster because DEI, critical race theory, all this social justice nonsense that they've been pushing. And you heard what I said. I talked just recently to two young soldiers that had been crawling in the mud overseas for a year. And they come back and they think they're coming back and be debriefed and all that and relax and rest. They go to a week of DEI training. I mean, it's absolutely nonsense of what we're pushing these people to do that's protecting our country.
I'm glad you asked him about recruiting yesterday. It's already on the uptick since his nomination, since Donald Trump's win, and it's needed. And a guy like Pete makes me regret that I did not serve, Senator. I wouldn't do myself a service if I didn't have you here today to follow up on our last conversation. So I woke up this morning, Coach. It started last night, actually. You know I'm a big fan of the Longhorns. And so the whole recruiting/transfer portal started late for the Longhorns this year because of going to the semifinals, which is a blessing. But because of that, now there's roster fallout. So I got my sources, Coach. So I'm getting texts last night. Oh, no, you need to be prepared for some big talent departures. I said, no. And then I wake up this morning, I'm like, they're telling me, well, there's a bidding war for this guy. And by the way, the guys I'm talking about, Coach, freshman, sophomore, starters, playing time, succeed, excel, happy, in on the culture, winning, going to the semifinals. Why are they leaving, Coach? One reason. Somebody out there is dangling big dollars for a transfer, and it's a matter of a bidding war. And we have these unlimited, never-ending free agency in college football. I think it's going to kill college football. I don't know how you survive in a world like that.
Well, you don't. And you got to go back to one thing, and I am for kids making money, okay, because it's hard. Most 99.9% of them are not going to NFL. If they can make a little money off of their name, image, and likeness, I'm good with that. The problem is they have no skin in the game in terms of responsibility. We have to have contracts. And if you're going to pay somebody $3 million, we got to have a length of a contract where at least you stay 2 years, maybe even 3. But we can't have these young men and women leaving for $10,000 or $50,000 more. There's more interference. There's no telling how many of these kids from Texas were being talked to every day by these runners, these agents, these lawyers, these people out there that are—
That's how it works.
Obviously trying to steal your player, getting ready to steal your players.
I don't, Coach, I know you're out of it. I don't know how you do it. You got to recruit high school players. You got to recruit yourself in the transfer portal. You got to recruit your own roster. And I think, I know you're going to work on something. I know you're working on something, and I think you're on the right track. I'm under a contract. I can't just move, A lot of people, NFL players are under contract. I don't know why you can't be in college football. You're on the right track, Coach. We always love having you on the Will Cain Show. You're doing a great job. Just like you did in your old job, you're doing a great job now in the United States Senate. We appreciate it.
Congratulations on your new job, Will. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Coach. I hope to see you. I don't know what your schedule's like at 4 o'clock. I don't know if you get a break or if you get in recess, but we'd love to see you at 4 o'clock.
You got it. Look forward to it.
All right, Senator Tommy Tuberville here on the Will Cain Show. Soon we'll see him as well on the Fox News channel. So coming up, we've got Conn Carroll. He's the author of Sex and the Citizen, and Caroline Downey. She's a National Review staff writer. They're going to join us for our lunch break panel. We're going to dig into Joe Biden's farewell letter and his farewell speech tonight. That's next on the Will Cain Show. Times of Israel. We have a deal. It's the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, on the Fox News Facebook page. Terrestrial radio, market to market, always available by subscribing on Spotify or on Apple. As a reminder, next Tuesday, the launch of the Will Cain Show on the Fox News channel at 4 p.m. That will not interfere. It will not disrupt. It will only begin to complement what we have built here together at the Will Cain Show, streaming live at 12 o'clock Eastern Time every Monday through Thursday. YouTube, Facebook, and foxnews.com. We have a deal. That is the headline from the Times of Israel. Trump becomes the first leader to announce hostage ceasefire deal, besting Biden. The U.S. President-elect Donald Trump becomes the first person from the negotiations to publicly confirm on the record that a hostage release and ceasefire deal has been reached. Trump posted on Truth Social, "We have a deal for the hostages in the Middle East. They will be released shortly. Thank you." Let's bring in Caroline Downey. She's a National Review staff writer. She's also a visiting fellow at the Independent Women's Forum. And she's here today with us as part of our lunch break panel. Hi, Caroline.
Hey, Will. Congrats on your new show, by the way.
Thank you so much. We're really excited here. It's an adventure. We don't know what to expect, but all we know is we're excited. This is pretty exciting, this breaking news, right? I know I just got it sent to me. Trump has posted it on Truth Social. What do you make of this? As much as we know right now, we have a deal for the hostages in the Middle East.
Well, we know that Biden is lame duck president at this point, so I don't think we want to attribute too much credit to this administration for securing their release. But I will say that the Trump effect is still working very well, right on schedule. He's imminently about to be inaugurated as the next commander-in-chief, and I think that has had a chilling effect on any adversaries that seek to do the United States harm and seek to exploit us on the world stage. And I would just say that they know winter is coming. All of our foreign foes know that winter is coming with Trump in the White House again, and so they're just trying to get ahead of the curve before it gets ugly.
If this bears out, if what I've just shared with you that Trump has put on Truth Social bears out, even if it takes a little bit of time for the hostages to be released, Caroline, I mean, this is 1979. This is Jimmy Carter. This is the Iranian hostage crisis, where those hostages were released right at the beginning of Ronald Reagan's presidency. You know, understanding what was, like you just said, like you just laid out for us, was about to change in the world. I mean, this would be not just a victory. This would be one for the history books that has a historical precedent, and we know what it did to the legacies of the two men involved, Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan.
Right. No, it absolutely has just momentous significance for their legacies and for their records. And if we can get these innocent people home safely, I mean, their families have endured, I mean, just unimaginable trauma, and just this waiting of, are they still alive? Will we ever see them again? You know, if that can be achieved, then it will be a major foreign policy triumph right off the bat, I would say, for Trump. I don't think, you know, Biden, like I said, can
No,
claim...
this is about Trump, not Biden.
Right. It will be just hugely significant. And like his record from the last administration was this foreign policy of peace through strength, which Ronald Reagan was very familiar with and honestly stewarded that foreign policy philosophy. And I think it's already making movements for Trump.
All right. Joe Biden has issued a farewell letter. He has published it. He's scheduled to give a farewell address tonight. I want to share some of this with the audience. We'll go through it here together as well. Several things stuck out to me, and I want to just look at two paragraphs, if I can, of Joe Biden's farewell address. I believe we have those that we can share with you in the audience. So this is what first stood out. He writes in his farewell letter, 4 years ago, we stood in a winter of peril and a winter of possibilities. We were in the grip of the worst pandemic in a century, the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, and the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. But we came together as Americans, and we braved through it. We emerged stronger and more prosperous and more secure. Let's go back here now to the Will Cain Studios, where we have Caroline Downey from the National Review. We're also joined by Conn Carroll. He is the author of Sex and the Citizen, How the Assault on Marriage is Destroying Democracy. Together, Conn and Caroline are part of our lunch break panel. Guys, so that paragraph that I just read you, I've noticed this from the beginning. It's a big part in legacy building. I'll go to you first, Conn, that Joe Biden has been engaged with for really a couple of years now. What he's wanted to try to paint the picture of his presidency as, he inherited a horrible mess, a winter of dark discontent, essentially, and he brought us back. Because I feel like what he can't do, Conn, is brag about the heights at which we are now. He has to cage it in, look where we started. And when he always talks about where we started, he focuses in on that tight period of COVID. Not the unemployment rate, not the inflation rate, not the economy of Donald Trump before COVID, but as though the world did not exist before he inherited COVID.
And he's just factually wrong there to begin with as well. I mean, when you look at the depths of the economy during COVID, that was already recovering by the time Biden came into office. If you look at both GDP growth and job growth, it was actually stronger under Trump in those in the post-COVID recovery than when Biden took office. Both job growth and GDP growth actually slowed down when Biden came into power. You can look on the BLS website and look it up. The data is there. I mean, when Biden came into office, instead of opening up the economy and ending the government shutdowns, he did the opposite. He tried to shut down the economy further. And then, of course, he just made it all worse by passing the $1 trillion spending bill that sent inflation high. And that's what people remember, is that all he had to do was come in and not mess up and open up the government. And instead, he tried to be this new FDR and tried to manage the government in ways, and of course, threw in all that spending. And the result was a disaster. And that's what people know. That's why he's leaving office as the least popular president since Nixon.
Two things there. I'll put to you, Caroline, that concept I find fascinating, because even I forget that the recovery began before Donald Trump left office. We always picture this COVID period. I kind of, in my head, it's like a year and a half. And that year and a half is like blocked. You know what I mean? It's all the same. But if it's already on the upswing and you ride the upswing, and as Conn described it, you even depress the upswing, you don't get credit for bringing us out of this dark winter. And the second, what Conn said is, Biden fashioned himself as FDR, and that's how they all behaved. Hey, never let a crisis go to waste. We're going to take this moment, and we are going to shove every dream project, WPA, Work Projects Administration, through this time of need, Caroline.
Yeah, I mean, he envisioned a social transformation of the economy that the American people did not ask for. Of course, in his revisionist history, like you said, he's a victim of mere circumstances. He inherited this horrific situation with COVID, which, of course, inflation was partially driven by the supply chain disruptions and the logistical issues of that time. But the point is, he exacerbated inflation to great levels. It's up 20% from the start of his administration. That wasn't totally because of pandemic forces that he had no control over. The Inflation Reduction Act, all these other sweeping spending packages that were reckless and absolutely fueled the fires of inflation. And I mean, Inflation Reduction Act was always an oxymoron to anyone who knew basic economics, but they got them over the finish line anyway. The Build Back Better plan, the bipartisan infrastructure package, he touts that in his farewell address supposedly as well, which is ironic because as California is on fire, we have to wonder, where was the federal money for their infrastructure, for their water pipes, which crumbled under pressure as flames engulfed a region larger than the size of Manhattan? So these legislative victories they're just not in the history books. And Biden's also saying, in a way, I admit that I was forced to the left by this progressive faction. He wasn't a progressive. Biden's instincts were much more old-fashioned liberal, but this small cohort forced him to the left of the middle of this country in so many ways. I mean, with Title IX and codifying gender identity into the federal bureaucracy as a protected category and so many others. And he's trying to salvage his legacy as he can.
Well, there was another, speaking of, sort of his political center, let's read this other paragraph from his farewell that stuck out to me. He wrote, America's an idea stronger than any army and larger than any ocean. It's the most powerful idea in the history of the world. The idea that we're all created equal, endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, among them life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We've never fully lived up to this sacred idea, but we've never walked away from it either, and I don't believe the American people will walk away from it now. Conn, you and I have known each other a long time. I think 10 years ago, I would have bought into that paragraph. I think that it sounds good, and I actually probably at one time thought America was an idea. I think in part it is. But I have evolved, Conn. I don't know, since we've known each other, I don't know where you are in this, but I've evolved. You cannot tell the story of America without acknowledging that America is a people and a place as well. And it's important. And that's not being nativist. That is not. What it acknowledges is there is a cultural component to the United States of America that has to be preserved through this idea. We're not an abstract political course. We're not just simply a college course on ideas and the best way to form a world. We are a people whose culture supports those ideas. And that's important to me because in so many ways the culture is attacked through illegal immigration, through legal immigration sometimes, which is a worthy debate to have, not to shut it down or whatever, but to talk about assimilation, and that we're a place. And I think that sounds flowery, what he says there, but I think it has some deep philosophical stuff that we have to start to understand. Yeah,
I mean, look, we've always been a nation of immigrants, obviously since the founding. The the people that signed the Constitution weren't native to the land. They came there. But at the same time, we've also always understood ourselves as being a Christian nation. And I understand it's a nation that's always tolerated other religions. George Washington made a point of making the Jews feel particularly welcome. But when you go back and look at the early Congress and the Supreme Court and how they ruled on specifically in relation to my book on the issues of questions of marriage and everything else, they specifically acknowledged that our civil society, the very foundation morality of our people, was rooted in a Christian faith that was built around monogamous marriage. And
by the way, Con, these freedoms they were preserving would not work if they did not rest upon that culture you just described.
Exactly. They never saw some free-for-all where people just got together from all different backgrounds and everything worked out. No, you have to, in order to have a nation, in order to have a civil society that functions, people have to be on the same page about what the good life is, about what is expected of other people. And the only way you can have that is with some type of assimilation, some type of common understanding of what the good life is. And we understood that for hundreds of years. People often forget when you go back and you look at right after the Civil War, the same Congress that freed the slaves went to war against the LDS Church over polygamy. And they had to pass not one, not two, but three laws that in the end revoked the charter of the church and actually stole all their land. And it wasn't until that case went all the way to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court affirmed, and the language in this case is amazing. The Supreme Court affirmed that we are a Christian nation, that monogamous marriage is the foundation of that marriage, and affirmed that congressional law. It wasn't until after that the Mormon church relented and gave up on polygamy and then turned to monogamy. And they've been a great monogamous people ever since. But people forget just how essential the understanding of ourselves as a Christian nation were to our success and to the world power we have become.
And here's the thing, Con, and I'm going to put now to you, Caroline, but I imagine a critic of me or you could listen to that and go, man, that sounds Christian nationalist. No, what this is an acknowledgement of is who we are as a people. And that's why I'm pushing back on this idea that we are just an idea. Because once you say you're just an idea, then it's like, well, the idea can morph and people can choose to not buy into the idea. And there are examples of this. Like, that's what's happening in the UK. Like, they have bought into the idea of multiculturalism to such an extent they've lost sense of who they are. And who you are is not just the Constitution of the United States. Who you are is not just the Declaration of Independence. Those are important, very, very important. But Caroline, I guess the point I'm making is they exist, they coexist with these things that I think Con and I agree on, and Joe Biden leaves out of America.
There's that famous Benjamin Franklin quote, "A republic if you can keep it," because our founding framework, founding articles that these framers wrote to each other, it said very clearly, this experiment in self-government will only work if we have a moral people, if they are virtuous.
Yeah.
And how do we foster that virtue in a people? Well, it's through those, as Tocqueville said, those mediating institutions, those little platoons of church and family, the societal ties that bind us together. All of those things have to flourish, and we have to have a practicing moral compass as a nation. And there's this other analogy I remember that I love, which is that I believe the Constitution is the picture, and the Declaration of Independence is the frame. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, as well as all of the Bill of Rights and all of the amendments and the Constitution, which sets up how our limited government works. To come into this country and be a citizen, an American, you have to buy in to all of that. You not only have to have the moral code that you're describing, Will, which is, it's a Western civilization thing. We're beneficiaries of that.
Yes.
And even those who are secular here in this country, who claim to be atheists, they are all beneficiaries of a moral code that was laid by our forefathers a very long time ago. And those who are imported here illegally by the federal government, let's be real, they're not vetted. We have no idea if they subscribe to our founding mission and credo, our collective credo, which is essential because unlike other countries in the world, we're not united by an ethnicity. We're not. We're united by a language, and we're united by a credo, which has moral underpinnings.
Credo?
A credo.
Are you going with credo?
I'm going
That's a new one for me. I go credo. Is that a debate? Is that open for interpretation?
Is it
credo or credo?
You're probably right. I still mispronounce the word buried, and I get buried and buried confused. So anyway, I'll end there. But
Buried. Are you from like Minnesota? Buried? Are you from Minnesota?
No.
Or Wisconsin?
No, I'm from Florida, so I'm really exposing my state right now. I guess we mispronounced
Con, who's
things.
right? Am I right? Is it Credo or Credo? Which is it, Con?
I mean, you know, I have always heard Credo. Who am I to decide? You know, maybe the state of Florida has it right. I don't know.
I defer to my
Caroline,
Go ahead.
can I just tell you, early on when I was in TV, I went on CNN and I said this word, and I'm going to see if you can tell what the real world is. I'll give you the way I mispronounced it, okay? I said cacophony. And I still sometimes in my head say cacophony.
Okay, so you want to know why I know how to pronounce this? Cacophony. And I know how to pronounce it because that is the name my parents gave to this little boat that we bought in Florida because I'm a triplet and my brothers' names are Connor and Finn. So they said Caroline, Connor, Finn, cacophony. They like blended all three. Sorry, they blended all three names together.
But cacophony rolls off the tongue. Don't lie. It rolls off the tongue. Cacophony. It seems like it should be.
Does it?
Well, Con, I see you. Here, Two-A-Days Dan's going to settle the debate once and for all.
So I have the
all right,
pronunciation.
Go ahead. Give me Credo or Credo.
Credo.
Shoot.
Oh.
Sorry.
The AI Siri bot tells us Will is right. By the way, one more. While we're staying on this note, Dan, I don't know if you can bring this up, and I love him, and he's a friend of the show, Senator Mark Wayne Mullen. So when he tore in yesterday to Senator Tim Kaine and others, he did have a little moment where I go, huh? I want you to, it's at the back end of what he did, and I don't know how long your total clip is, Dan, but it's in the last 10 seconds. I want to listen to it one more time, see if you can cue that up, Dan.
Senator Kaine, or I guess I better use the senator from Virginia, starts bringing up the fact that what if you showed up drunk to your job? Give me a joke. I mean, it is so ridiculous that you guys hold yourself as this higher standard and you forget you got a big plank in your eye.
That's good. He did it. I've never in my life, and I promise you when he comes on next time, I'm going to ask him what it means to give me a joke. I mean, what is give me a joke? I think he caught himself somewhere between give me a break and you got to be, and that's a joke, right? We don't say give me a joke.
No,
Con,
he butchered
Caroline,
it pretty clearly.
Are you with me?
Yeah, I don't understand why he's saying that.
Don't be afraid just because he's a senator, Caroline. Don't be afraid. You can say you got it wrong, Senator.
It doesn't sound correct to the ear. But then again, these are senators. I'm sure they're well.
He'll own it.
Yeah.
He'll wear it as a badge of honor. He's from Eastern Oklahoma. He's going to own that he said, give me a joke on. He'll like it. And he did
No,
a heck of a
I think
job
you're right. He
yesterday.
clearly crossed the two up. So, but I mean, the rest of the clip was fantastic. I don't think it overshadowed the moment itself, which I definitely retweeted yesterday. It was a highlight. Absolutely.
It was awesome. It was awesome. A lot of guys were awesome. But that was an amazing moment. By the way, let's stay light for just a second. So yesterday, I need the details on this. So you guys, either you two or the boys back in the studio are going to have to fill me in. So what did Coke do? They made Donald Trump a commemorative, or it's the very first glass bottle of Diet Coke. It looks commemorative. It's got the White House on it. What is this, Dan or James? Con?
No, I mean, all I know is what I saw on Twitter, which was I believe they made him a, first ever inauguration commemorative Diet Coke
that's
bottle.
what it is. Yep.
Yeah, just for him. So I'm sure they saw, all the stories of him having the Diet Coke button, and they said, easy marketing opportunity. It's like a Pop-Tarts bowl, but without the football.
Yeah, it says
they're just rewarding their biggest customer ever. I mean, this is very
Absolutely.
common sense thing to do. Thank you for single-handedly keeping us in business, Mr. Trump. You're the reason Diet Coke had a revival among, I mean, I don't know if it was actually out of style, but everyone I know now in my age demographic, Gen Z, we're all about Diet Coke. I still like good old Mexican Coke because it has cane sugar. So I salute RFK on the cane sugar thing and getting rid of high fructose corn syrup. But I love it. I think it's
Gen Z's Diet Coke?
Oh yeah. Big time.
I had no idea.
They just, it's because it's very few calories, and I would argue it's actually an entirely different soda altogether than regular Coke. I don't even think they're in the same category.
Yeah.
I think they're entirely different. You've altered it to the point where, the artificial sugar just makes it like the composition tastes very different. But I mean, it's got a sexy silver can.
I'll do a Diet Coke, which I guess makes me Gen Z-ish. But, like, if I go a diet soda, which I don't do that often, but I do try to do diet. If it's a Dr. Pepper day, though, it's just a day for Dr. Pepper. That's a huge dessert treat. But if I'm going what you said, low calorie, I'd go 50% Diet Dr. Pepper, 50% Diet Coke. By the way, is this political? Are the libs all running from Coke? Are they going to Pepsi?
Well, look, I mean, Coca-Cola did all the DEI initiatives during 2020 as well. So it's not like Coke is suddenly this conservative bastion in the commercial world. But it is a tried and true American trademark, and it's a household name that goes many, many, many decades back. I've been to the Coke Museum in Atlanta, and it is fascinating to see the history of that company. They also have flavors from around the world. Like, I think it's like over 300, which is always fun.
Con, are you? You.
Oh, I've always been
I never know
Diet
what to
Coke
make
drinker.
of Con's face. Oh, you're a
I've
Diet
always
Coke
been a
drinker.
Diet Coke drinker.
You're Gen Z.
Absolutely. I've got one on my desk right now.
Diet Coke strikes a flavor balance where you almost tell yourself that you're not, because you're not, it's artificial, but you're not. When you have a Coke or a Dr. Pepper, you're like, I am drinking a dessert. I know that. I can taste that I'm drinking a dessert. There's a lack of sweetness to Diet Coke that you can convince yourself it's almost like coffee. It's just a little pick-me-up.
Yeah, that's all it is.
I mean, I think it's incredible that Trump has made this part of his diet in such a major way, and he's still not only alive, but he's thriving. This is his lifeblood, Diet Coke. If they suddenly put Diet Coke out of commission, I think Trump would cease to function. I think he'd be devastated.
I want to ask him.
Same thing with McDonald's.
That's a great point. I'm going to ask him that next time I see him or interview him.
Does he
if
drink
they're
it
out of
straight
Diet
out of the
Coke,
can, or does he put it over ice?
Well, so there's debate about this
I think
as well.
he does both. Well, I've been with him. I know that he puts it in
I'm
it.
strictly ice. I never drink out of the can.
Many would argue.
I've seen him with glass and ice. Glass and ice. I've seen him that, but I don't know that he's opposed to the can. He might be opposed. I don't know. Something, Caroline?
Something about the way the aluminum insulates the beverage. I don't know, but fresh can out of the fridge, crispy, icy. I feel like that is the top tier way to consume this drink. But then there are those who will say, well, actually, like crushed ice from McDonald's, like the Coca-Cola, whatever is in the soda machines at the McDonald's franchises, they definitely are different. Like there's almost like
It is.
there's like a ranking of
It's a fact.
Yes. Like how does the
They
best
have a
way to
different
drink
formula.
this? They do.
They do. I think that's fact. We could Google that, but I believe McDonald's gets a different formula from Coke that's slightly altered and everybody believes is better. I just slightly altered.
So
but
they do.
I think they
get it in a
Go ahead,
canister,
Dan.
not a bag. So it's it's fresher and more crisp because they get it in a gas canister and everyone else gets it in bags, the syrup and all that.
It hits different.
And they won't do the same. They won't do that for Sonic or
Nope,
whatever.
exactly.
They won't give the gas canister
it's
to other
specifically just
people.
for McDonald's.
Interesting.
And by the way,
Interesting.
I looked up. Trump drinks mostly out of plastic bottles for Diet Coke. I'm seeing.
That's a
the
lower
plastic
tier.
bottle. Oh. They're both.
Ice is what separates
Con's
us
shaking
from
his
the-
head.
Ice is what separates us from the uncivilized people. I mean, you go to Europe, they don't have any ice. Ice is what makes us American. You got to put it over ice, otherwise you're just a Frenchie.
I totally agree. I will pull it out of a can, like Caroline just said, but if you take it out of the can or bottle and you put it into a glass and you don't put any ice with it, I wouldn't know what to do with that. That's like a huge social faux pas. Like, what's wrong with you? That doesn't look right to drink it in that manner. Okay, let's do this.
Sure doesn't
Before
taste
we go,
right.
I want to turn to the business at hand as well. I know you believe this, Caroline. So, Jilly, fitness expert, is it Jillian Anderson? What's her name? Jillian
Michaels.
Thank you. Jillian Michaels has said that she believes the response to the fires in Los Angeles will push many residents and celebrities away from the way they have traditionally voted, which of course is blue and Democrat, that this will be a come to Jesus moment. Others are doubtful. Others are like, no, you're way too hopeful. And I think I'm probably in the category of others. I am pretty doubtful that this is going to change California. What do you think, Caroline?
I think sometimes it takes limousine liberal elites suffering the consequences of the policies they support to really change their mind on these things. I mean, the list of actors and famous celebrities whose homes were burned to the ground is really long. It was actually shocking to me. Both Billy Crystal and John Goodman, Mike Wazowski, and Sully from Monsters, Inc. both had their houses demolished by the fire, which I was like, that's so sad. But honestly, I think that it's hitting them where it really hurts now. And what I mean by progressive policies is there was serious mismanagement. And even Gavin Newsom, you see, he's scared. He's definitely already starting to freak out a little bit because he just suspended the environmental review process for rebuilding, which is crazy for California, which is all about permits. They're all about the environmental reviews. They're all about these prolonged review processes, under the pretense of an environmental protection. And that's, he suspended all that because people are up in arms. I mean, their livelihoods have been destroyed, their properties, and it's because, like as I was mentioning earlier, the infrastructure failed the fire departments. And you have to ask, okay, why is that? Well, it's because the state government under Newsom as well as LA County, they rerouted a lot of the money that should have been going to disaster prevention to updating, improving the water pipes and, making sure the Palisades Reservoir wasn't out of commission. It's gone to homelessness. It's gone to endangered species. It's gone to climate change initiatives, which will not make a dent in lowering the global temperature because you have mass polluters like China. So here they are, they've dumped just millions of dollars on measures that are not about keeping your population safe, which is literally the core function of government. Keep your people safe.
Totally.
And so they wasted
Con,
it all.
I saw Bill Burr, who I think is pretty funny sometimes, like on Jimmy Kimmel. And he's like, mismanagement. It's not mismanagement. All these experts on lawn say it's mismanagement. I don't know. All it takes is some identity politics and a little bit of climate change or something, and I think they'll be right back there voting blue.
Well, I think you have to look at what we've seen so far, and that is that the deeply blue Los Angeles just recently voted in the first Republican district attorney in a generation, right? So you've already seen a move to the right. You've already seen a move to the Republicans. Now, it's going to be up to Republicans like Nate Hochman to do a good job. And I think so far, when you look at the leaders that have come out in this wildfire, people who have stepped up, all the Democrats have failed. Newsom, Bass, they've all looked ridiculous. Hochman's the only leading light here. Hochman's the only shining light here of someone who's come up, taken on the job, said, we are going to prosecute these leaders. We're going to get them. We're going to shut them down. And I think if you get more of that, if you get more competent Republicans winning these smaller offices and showing, look, I'm actually going to deliver good government, I'm actually going to deliver good services, then yeah, I think you could see California turning at least purple.
Okay, I'm going to end this lunch break panel with two questions for you guys. I'm curious on two things, so I'm going to get your take. First, what goes purple first? California moving from blue to purple or Texas moving from red to purple? I'll just go quickly to both of you. Which one goes first? Con.
California. I mean, they've been talking about Texas for generations, and the state's still booming. It's just not going to happen.
Caroline?
California. I agree with everything he said.
I love your both optimism. I do. And as a Texan, I hope that you're correct.
But you lived
this
in
calls
California.
back to, I did live in California. That's true. I did. I went to Pepperdine, right in the middle of where all these fires happen. There's a lot of Californians moving to Texas. So that's why that question I do think is appropriate about whether or not Texas could move purple. But I do think most Californians that move here, there's a lot of job growth. And job growth brings people of different ideologies. But there's also refugees, meaning people moving from California for the right reasons to Texas. Here's the last one quickly. I don't want to ask you what do you think his legacy will be, because that's going to be big and long. But how about this? When it's all said and done, where do you think Joe Biden will rank in presidencies? Like, you got to give it time. Caroline's Gen Z, so Con, you and I were around to see the end of George Bush and that kind of thing. And, his legacy is still being written, by the way. Whatever we thought it was in 2009, 10, 11 is way different than what people think today for different reasons. So his is in flux. And so the point there is it takes time for a legacy to settle in. But say we're 25 years down the road, 20 years down the road. What's the legacy? Where does he rank, Joe Biden?
I think he's going to be below Carter. And a big part of it is age. I mean, you talk about Bush rehabilitating, but he was young when he got out of office, right? He had the other 40, 50, 60 years ahead of him. Joe Biden does not. He's going to quickly fade off the stage, mostly because he just doesn't have the skill set to be on the stage anymore. And he's leaving on a whole bunch of terrible notes from Hunter Biden to all the rest of the pardons, to taking Cuba off of the terrorist list. I mean, he's just leaving a real bad taste in not just American voters, and not just independent mouths, but in the mouths of Democrats as well. And without some type of body of work to point to as a post president and say, look, I did good and I rehabilitated myself, I think he's going to stay below Carter.
Yeah.
Caroline?
I'll say the comparisons of Jimmy Carter and Joe Biden missed the mark in that at least we could say that while Jimmy Carter's administration had similar economic trends as Biden's, there was, of course, inflation. There was stagflation under Carter. And then, economic boom followed with Ronald Reagan. And I think we can expect a very similar thing to happen with Trump in the White House again. But Carter was at least a man of God. He was a man of Christian charity. He didn't, run around saying one thing about his religiosity and then just openly violating that in everything he would do. I won't say more on that, but Carter actually was well-intentioned. He made a lot of serious mistakes in diplomacy, of course. I mean, he tried to be the mediator of the Camp David Accords between Egypt and Israel, and it failed because he was a good guy who had great intentions, and it was just a disaster, unfortunately. Biden, on the other hand, is one of the most corrupt presidents of our lifetime. The influence peddling schemes of his family, which have been well documented by, of course, James Comer and his committee, as well as Miranda Devine and the entire Hunter Biden laptop scandal, the way they enriched themselves from foreign entities when they were not foreign agents or declared as such is a massive scandal. And that reflects very, very poor character that I think Jimmy Carter, he never stooped to those lows.
And I'll add one more thing to that. I think it's a really good point both of you make. I think that he doesn't have time to rehabilitate himself, like you pointed out, Con. He also might not have the machine. Like, that rehabilitation process for Democrats is often aided by not just the Democratic Party continuing to sanctify you, but also the mainstream media. And in the last, what has it been, 6 to 8 months, he's kind of lost both of those things, at least to some degree. So they're not going to have a big interest in continue to rehabilitate him and his legacy and his, in his post-presidency life. All right, this has been an awesome lunch break panel. Conn Carroll, check out his book. Last time we were together, we talked about about marriage and deeply more deeply about his book, Sex and the Citizen: How the Assault on Marriage is Destroying Democracy. It's out there. It's on sale now. And Caroline Downey, she's at National Review. She's also a visiting fellow at the Independent Women's Forum. They're both on X, and it pretty much follows exactly the way you say their name. So you'll find them when you look for their name. All right, Caroline, Conn, thank you.
Thanks, Will.
All right. Okay, that's going to do it for me today. What is today, Wednesday? That means I'm going to be right back here tomorrow, Thursday, 12 o'clock Eastern Time, foxnews.com, Fox News YouTube channel, Fox News Facebook page. Let's get ready for next week. Inauguration of President Donald Trump.